Do you own one of these? And by these, obviously, I mean a Cocker Spaniel. They are one of the most popular gun dog breeds in the UK, and if I'm being quite honest, one of the most misunderstood. People get them because they're cute. I mean, look at him. Compact and very, very friendly. And all of that is very true. But there is a side to the Cocker Spaniel that no one warns you about before you bring them home. In this video, I'm going to be giving you the honest pros and cons to owning a Cocker Spaniel. The good stuff and the stuff that catches owners completely off guard. First of all, I would like to introduce you to my assistant. Obviously, you veterans on the channel will know all about this little chocolate bundle of joy. But for those of you that don't, this is Reggie. He's my foster dog. And yeah, when he came to me, he was human aggressive, resource guarded, X, Y, and Z, absolute trouble and problem child. And now he's, yeah, the legend really. Right, let's start with the pros. Pro number one, Cocker Spaniels are extremely, and I mean extremely, people-oriented. Cocker Spaniels live for their people. They want to be with you. They want to know what you're doing and be involved in absolutely everything. And that people orientation makes them incredibly easy to bond with. They're responsive, they want to please you, and of course, they want to engage with you. From a training perspective, that is pretty gold. A dog that wants to work with you is a dog that is relatively easy to train. On a walk, Reggie, more often than not, is constantly checking in with me. He doesn't stray too far away from where I am, to be completely honest. And that connection is what makes him such a pleasure to work with. Now, that same trait can become a problem, but we're going to get to that in the cons. Pro number two, they are great adventure companions. These dogs will honestly go anywhere with you. Hiking, camping, long walks, cities, beaches, they are honestly in it for everything. They've got the stamina and the drive to keep up with an active lifestyle. They're compact enough to take anywhere, but tough enough to handle any terrain. They genuinely enjoy new environments, new smells, new sights, and new experiences. I can actually take this little guy absolutely anywhere. And not only is he a pleasure to take, but he actually really enjoys it as well. That's the adventure companion side of the Cocker. If you want a dog that matches your lifestyle and keeps up with you, these guys won't let you down. Pro number three, they are incredibly intelligent. Cocker Spaniels are sharp, like really sharp. They pick up new skills quickly, they can problem solve, and they read situations really well. They're intuitive, they can pick up on your mood, your energy, and what you're about to do. From a training perspective, they get concepts very fast, which is great because then you're just not having to repeat yourself 100 times. Like Reggie honestly learns things very easily. I taught him directionals in as little as literally one session. He just picked it up like that. And that intelligence makes training sessions efficient and enjoyable. But intelligence does cut both ways. A smart dog that is bored and underfulfilled, more often than not, is going to find its own piece of entertainment, and chances are you're not going to enjoy the outcome. Pro number four, their compact size. They're a very practical size. They're not too big and they're not too small. They fit in the car easily, they fit in your home, they're super manageable on the lead. They're robust enough for outdoor adventures, but small enough to be practical day to day. And they travel well and, to make it even better, settle in very small spaces. Reggie takes up about 1/3 of the sofa, which is still a little bit too much, but I can live with it. Pro number five, they are affectionate and fun. These dogs are genuinely joyful. There's a playfulness to them that's hard not to love. They're warm, affectionate, and genuinely happy to be around. Don't really know what's going on right next to me right now. Teddy's just spawned. Just accept it, guys, okay? As just shown there, they've got a sense of humor, they're funny, and they genuinely will make you laugh. The bond you build with a Cocker is something else. They're loyal in a way that's just too hard to explain until you've experienced it. After a long day, Reggie's enthusiasm is infectious. That energy is a pro when it's channeled right. Now, on to the cons. This is the stuff that often gets overlooked and definitely catches you first-time cocker owners or even long-term cocker owners out. Con number one, they can become very obsessive. They can become obsessive not necessarily about people, but just things in general. They can just hyper-focus on things one day, hyper-focus on something the next, and it can become a genuine problem. This is most often where I start to see things like OCD start to develop as well. Their obsessions could be things like sticks, stones, balls, shadows, reflections. The list honestly goes on. And some of your dogs might even be obsessed with anything that moves. Now, this is something that probably a lot of you out there will have experienced at some point. The dog will just never, ever, ever drop the ball. However, will be more than happy to come and drop it at your feet 172 times. Or a dog that finds a stone on a walk and carries it the entire way home. Or even in your garden. And then we've got chasing shadows or light reflections around the room, or fixating on something in the garden and just continually staring at it for 20 minutes or so. Now, this one's really freaking grim, and if you're into this kind of stuff, it's probably all right, but if you aren't, then you're going to be a bit winced out. Something that I see a lot in Facebook groups, and that is your dog's licking your feet. What the hell is that all about? Cocker's brain, right, is wired for focus. That is what makes them fantastic gun dogs. But in a pet environment without a job, that focus, unfortunately, is going to need to go somewhere. And it often attaches itself to the wrong things. And it's not a personality trait either. It's just a sign that the dog's drive hasn't been channeled properly. Obsessive behaviors in cockers is almost always a sign of very little fulfillment or just a lack of structure. Now, the drive is there. It just needs somewhere appropriate to put it. Con number two, they just do not switch off. Constant, all the time, on the go, left, right, center, up, down, staring into your soul, which might be quite hard to believe when you feast your eyes on little Reginald here, but honestly, when he first came to me, he was that dog. He could not settle to save his life. A lot of people buy a cocker in hopes that they can just knacker it out, tire it out, just do 110 different things with them, and they just crash afterwards. Fortunately, doesn't work like that. They come back from a 2-hour walk and they're still pacing, they're still looking for something to do, and they just do not want to settle. So they'll fidget and they'll always be switched on. And to the contrary, the more exercise you give them, the more you do with them, the more they are going to need, because they're just going to become more of an athlete. And what does an athlete do when it gets good at something? It gets better at it. So you're just going to be constantly feeding that adrenaline cycle. So not only will you have a fit cocker, you're also going to have a wired cocker. Now, cockers don't have a natural off switch like most dogs. Settling is a skill that needs to be taught. It's not something that just comes automatically. Their nervous system operates at a much higher degree, and that is just simply that gun dog drive kicking in. So more exercise isn't the answer, because all you're creating is a dog that's going to need more. The answer is to teach them how to settle, how to switch off, and how to be calm. A cocker that can't settle is simply a cocker that has just never been taught how to. That is a training gap and not a breed flaw. Con number three, separation issues can develop. Now, true separation anxiety in Cocker Spaniels is actually quite rare, believe it or not, but separation issues are definitely way more common. And what this actually is a terminology called FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. Your dog constantly thinks there is something happening elsewhere that needs to involve them. And when they are not able to have access to that thing, that's when we start to have problems. So they're not panicking because you've left, they're just very, very frustrated that something might be happening without them. Alternatively though, this could also be codependency. The dog has just never been taught to be independent. They've always had access to their owner, constantly following them around, and now they don't know how to be alone. So it's not a clinical anxiety disorder, It's just a training gap. This could look like barking or whining when left alone, following you from room to room, can't settle unless you are in sight, scratching at doors, being restless and pacing. And cockers do bond deeply, and of course, as I mentioned, that is a pro. But if independence is not built, unfortunately, that becomes codependency. A lot of owners fall into the trap of having their dogs, well, when they're puppies, follow them around right their way up until they are adolescent. And but the problem with this is they then create that codependency that I've been talking about. And that just teaches the dog that being alone is very abnormal and alien. So I can assure you that your dog doesn't have separation anxiety, but what they do have is the inability to be left alone. There is a massive difference, but the good news is it's very fixable. Now, con number 4, they can actually be quite vocal. Cocker Spaniels do have opinions and they are not afraid to show it either. This might look like barking at the door, the window, or even movement outside, whining for attention or when they want something, vocalizing during play or when excited, and barking at other dogs when on walks. Now, cockers are communicative dogs. That is part of their personality, but without structure can become a little bit excessive. Vocality in cockers is definitely manageable, but if you let it slide early on, it becomes a habit, and of course habits are quite difficult to break. Con number 5, they're often underestimated. This is probably the biggest one. It's often the one that catches most people off guard. People get a cocker because they're a sweet, easy family dog, and they are, don't get me wrong, but they are also a working gun dog. Their needs are higher than what most people expect. Their drive is higher, their intelligence is way higher, and owners just don't take their training seriously because they seem manageable until they're not. An underestimated cocker is a cocker that is just not getting what it needs. And that shows up as reactivity, obsession, separation issues, the inability to settle, all of the cons we have just spoken about. The cocker is one of the most capable and rewarding breeds you can own, but you have to meet them where they are. The owners that struggle the most with cockers are the ones that just didn't take the breed seriously. But the owners that thrive are the ones that understood exactly what they were getting and put the work in. Reggie is an example of a cocker when they are understood and trained correctly. But it is going to take work and it is worth every last bit of it. So as a whole, Cocker Spaniels are incredible dogs, but they're not for everyone and they definitely aren't as easy as they look. So if you've got a cocker and you're struggling with any of the cons that I've mentioned in today's video, I highly recommend that you go ahead and grab the handbook. It's a great starting point for understanding what your dog actually needs. So the Pet Gun Dog Owner's Handbook is in the description below. And I want you to drop me a comment and let me know if you've got a cocker. I want you to drop their name. I want you to tell me one thing that you absolutely love about them and another on what you wish was better.